Hey, everybody. Thank you for listening into the Fitstyle Podcast. This is your host, Jonathan Trommer. I have Zach here and our special guest, Jackson Diffin. So today we're going to talk about, his off season that he's currently in. I just came off an off season. So just talking about things like, training, nutrition, good things we're doing, mistakes that are usually made, and just stuff like that. So, Jackson, if you could just say like a little bit about your background, maybe what you were doing before the off season, what you're doing now, maybe some plans.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Well, my name is Jackson Diffin. I reside in Michigan, in southern Michigan. Um, a little bit about me. I've been working out, been in and out of the gym for a long time, obviously with playing sports in high school and stuff like that, but was never actually serious about bodybuilding until about a year and a half, 2 years ago is when I really started like that's what I was focusing on. That's why I was working out was for bodybuilding. So this past year, I cut down, got shredded, didn't do it right at all. um, and then this past fall, got with Jake to go into my off season into a massing phase and do it right and put on size the right way. Um, and yeah, hopefully now compete this next year.
Nice. Do you have any like dates set up or shows that you have your eyes on?
Um, I kind of have a round ballpark idea of when. I don't really want to chase a date necessarily. Just kind of want to chase that physique that I need to bring for that date. So we were thinking if we compete this year, it'll be towards the fall, like October-ish. Um, Maybe some big plans in the works. Might touch on that a little bit later on here, but might be some big stuff. I'm not quite sure yet.
Nice. Well, I think that was the right answer. You're chasing the physique, not just the date, which I think Jake, our coach, would agree with. So awesome. So as far as your off season, when exactly did you start?
I'd say, well, I started it before I got with Jake, really.
Okay.
I ended my cut like beginning of July and just kind of maintained for a few months. And before I started really kind of getting into more food. Um, and then kind of got lax with stuff. I was going out with friends on the weekends, kind of partying a little bit, and got a little behind. So then that's why I decided to get with Jake, um, which would have been in, I think I told you the other night, October, I think.
October, yeah. Probably, I think a few weeks after I did. I met with him sometime September, I think. It was just like 3 weeks after our August show. So yeah,
And so it was
not
like
sure.
middle of October, I think, something like that. That was when I got with him, and he started getting me on a plan and getting me right again. So
Yeah, awesome. So as far as that's going, um, what are some of the things like you're realizing this time around versus like I think you said like doing the off season like on your own, just eating out, or like what difference do you see with Jake? Like actually having accountability and like stuff like
be
that.
honest, to be honest with you, the biggest difference is I wasn't eating enough, even when, I thought I was pushing food and, upping the calories a lot. I was not eating enough compared to where I'm at now. Um, you know, eh, no wonder I didn't make the progress that I made in the past few months with Jake, you know, prior to that. I mean, that was the biggest thing is Jake's just taught me that, it's actually okay to like, eat some food. And that's what
Hmm.
you need to do to grow. Now before I got with him, I was eating like 24 to 2,500 calories, something like that. Like thinking
Cute.
I'm building, and now I'm eating, my day to day is almost 3,600, and then my refeeds are over 4,000. So yeah, it's
Holy cow.
like a big change.
I
So
think that I
what's
think
like, oh, sorry.
yeah. Go ahead, Zach.
I was just going to ask, so like, what's your maintenance level? Like, is it somewhere around like 3,000 or is it like a little bit?
Well, we were so about 2 weeks before Christmas, we made the decision, or about a week before Christmas, really, we made the decision to hold where we were at with the calories, which was like, I want to say 32 something. And we held that for about a week before Christmas up until a week or two ago. And I didn't put on any weight. I held right there, and my body composition in those 3 weeks, um, I tightened up so much. So honestly, I'm probably like right around the 3K mark, as far as like maintenance goes, I would think now. So yeah.
That makes me feel like really lazy and really sad because like I'm at 3,000 right now, or it's like 2,900 something, and I'm cutting. Like, so I think my max calories during this off season, I started my prep January 1st, and my max calories were only like 3,200. I think on like
Like at their
refeed
highest?
days, yeah. And then like refeed days were like 3,500 because my carbs were like 500 grams. But for me, I have a desk job where I actually sit at the same desk where I go in office sometimes and I barely move. And then so I'm like itching to go to the gym every day. And then I only do 20 minutes of cardio 3 times a week. So like,
Yeah.
but my health is still good and I still look tight even at peak off season. So
Yeah, you held on. Definitely, you definitely held on. I mean, you were pretty lean all the way through.
which is impressive. Like it's totally okay if you get chubby. So like, and I felt fatter than I looked for sure. But when I was losing weight when I first prepped, I think I told this to Zach on the first episode, was I was looking at my number of my weight, like 190 when I first cut down, and 190 now. Is like I look way different. Like I easily put on like a solid 5 pounds of muscle, if not more. I don't know, but
Nice.
that was like a year ago. But that's what's crazy about that. So
Yeah.
I don't think people really understand how much to like 100, let's say 190 pounds, how much different 190 pounds can look. Um, if you do it right. Like you may have been 190 pounds last year, let's say you had an off season, and you got a little sloppy with it, whatever. Um, and then, if you maintain that, like for me, like when I was talking about over like the Christmas break, um, I held on to that like 185, I think it was. And that 185 went from one physique to a completely different physique in those 4 weeks. Like it was two different looks at 185, but the same weight. And that's why I think people really don't understand too, is how different the same weight can look.
Yeah.
yeah, one of Cam's clients just posted that. Um, she just posted, I think her weight stayed the same for like a few months, and like she looks drastically different every single picture.
Yeah.
Zach, what was I don't know if you had an off season. I think you just prepped when I did for our show. Did you purposely have an off season for your show? I think we left that out.
Like, you mean following the show, right?
Even before, did you have like an off season to grow for the show, then you cut down? Because I know
So,
obviously you're not in prep now, but
yeah. Yeah, I mean, the gist of what it was like before the show for me was in a long series of failed attempts at like cycling through like the whole bulk and cut type thing. Because like I think I might have mentioned this previously, it took years, plural, for me to like get a hang of like actually how this works, which, kind of sucked, but it also kind of helped because it gave me a lot of experience in that way. Um, I started prepping at the end of May for last year's show. And prior to that, I probably spent probably from December, probably from November or December through May, um, and I was essentially going through a bulk phase. That was kind of like my off season where, my calories were probably between 3,000 and like 3,500 maybe. I don't think it ever really got too much like higher or lower than that, but that was kind of like a rough estimate. And then I kind of went from there. Definitely wasn't like as clean. Like I wasn't trying to go for like the main gaining, that you hear a lot of people talk about, which is essentially like the recomposition that you talk about when you're like, you keep your calories the same and you have this drastic difference between, from 1 month to the next. I definitely want to try that at some point because I like that, because otherwise, the idea of thinking that you just have to like, not yo-yo diet, but you have to go through like, there's only two options. Like you can either bulk or cut. There's no middle ground. I definitely want to try just like main gaining at some point because, just as far as like the extra effort that it takes to lose like that unnecessary fat that you put on. I find that kind of appealing, even though you do have to be like more disciplined with it. But I think that's kind of beneficial.
So. I think people, I don't remember where it was. There's a podcast I was listening to where they call it like a recovery phase. It's not necessarily reverse diet. So like when you get off a show, you're obviously super depleted, your hormones are different, like your body fat's super low, all that stuff. So at first you almost purposely not stuff yourself, but purposely overeat to get to a healthy body fat percentage. And then you just kind of ride it out to like normalize yourself. Yeah. So like you don't bulk right away. Because why are you going to go from like 2,000 or 1,500 calories to like 3,000? Like that's
very dangerous.
Yeah. So like I think that's kind of cool. I think it's like similar to main gaining, where people talk about like this like lean bulk thing. Like really you should never like, unless you're like, I think like Jackson said, unless you're like already eating 3,200 calories and you're still losing weight, or you still like look good and are shredded, I mean, yeah, you can jack it up, but I think all bulks should technically be lean bulks. You should never be eating like stupid way over. I mean, 500's like pretty decent, 300 to 500 over.
Yeah, that's not too much. It's just, kind of hard, especially when you're coming like right off of like several months of hardcore prepping, because you eat nothing but like essentially like chicken and broccoli and rice and not much else, and like 2 gallons of water a day, or whatever the hell it is. And you go from that to like stuffing your face with cheesecakes, and you can go from 0 to 100 really quick. So it's definitely like it's a balance. I mean, it's that's what it is. It's a balance. But
I hear horror stories.
There's definitely a lot of truth behind the reverse diet probably being the hardest part of like the year for you, like as a competitor at least, is that that reverse diet is going to be the hardest part. Coming, like he said, off from an extreme diet that most normal people would not do. Like you wouldn't do it just, so coming off from that and then knowing, okay, you're done. You don't necessarily need to be, on point now. That's like the hardest part, is coming off that and not just going out and, eating whatever you want for, however long, and putting on, like there's guys like Zach Jennings that post show, a week post show will be up 25, 30 pounds. Like that's ridiculous.
That's like, a lot. Do you guys know who Anthony Mantello is?
Yeah. Yep. I was just about to say that.
So yeah, he has a YouTube video where I forget what the number was. It was somewhere between 20 and 30. But in the span of like 2 or 3 days, this guy puts on all this weight, and it's not like it's nothing that's even remotely considered healthy. I mean, we're talking like cheesecakes and steaks and cheeseburgers and ice cream and donuts and cookies and desserts, and I don't know, it was like immediately after the show, but it was like, I don't know if it was something that his coach recommended. I forget. It's all in the YouTube video, but
yeah, I do remember that one. No, that wasn't. I know he just kind of went off and just did that because coming off this past show that he did this year, yeah, he followed the reverse really well. I know. and only was up like, I think at max
Couple
like 10
pounds.
pounds. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I remember what it was like post show and giving myself, allowing myself to eat again. I think what I did is I just didn't track, because obviously you were tracking everything before. I just didn't track for 2 weeks. Kind of ate what I wanted. Didn't really go overboard. It was mainly like I was probably okay with calories, obviously a little up, but just like, finally got to eat a sweet or like something like that. It was like a really good mental break. But the biggest thing I realized with the during the booking phase, because I didn't have a coach up until the show. About 3 weeks out, I had the 2 week break, and then I started to like get back on track. And that's when I realized I should get a coach. So that's when I hit Jake up. But the biggest thing I noticed between bulking with Jake versus on my own is it sounds simple, but literally tracking your weight progress, like what you're doing in the gym. I know it makes sense for your calories, but it's tracking like, okay, I need to go up a couple reps. I need to go up 10 pounds. Because people just pick up the same weights that feel comfortable and they go off a feel. It's like, no, you can do the same weight and it feels harder 1 week. So you need to push. So obviously I'm not telling you to get injured, but I was curious if you like what's your difference that you see, Jackson, with your off season now with Jake versus like previous years, or even what you would change going back from the beginning of starting with him?
so honestly, I don't think there's anything I would change probably after I started with him, like from day one. I mean, we got on the money, like on the money. Prior to being with Jake, honestly, there was not a whole lot of structure when it came to like training. Like I had my split, and I had my movements. But as far as like progressive overload, which is a huge thing, like you just said, I mean, that's how you grow, is progressively overloading, whether that's, a few, like a rep or two from week to week, or, up in at 2.5, 5 pounds, whatever. That progressive overload is something that I was not existent before for me. And now that, I keep track of, each movement, the weight that I use week to week, and either I'm up in the weight week to week or adding in a rep or two or three or whatever, the progress I've seen is, I mean, exponential. I mean, I'm up 25, almost 30 pounds from my end of my cut. So I mean, lifting, especially as a natural athlete, I think lifting heavy in like that 8 to 12 rep range and training with intensity is crucial. We can't, as naturals, you can't go to the gym, like all these Olympian stuff, and just go in for a pump. Like all these kids, you hear them talk about, oh, go get a pump, go get a pump, go get a pump. Well, you're not training to get a pump. You're not gonna grow, unfortunately, if you're natural just from going in and getting a pump and doing a lightweight for this outrageous number of reps, which is something I did before a lot too, because hypertrophy is supposed to be this king, to building muscle, and it's not. So
Now,
most of that was probably muscle too, right? I'm assuming
yeah.
out of like the 30 pounds.
I mean, obviously not all 30 of it is
Yeah,
gonna be
yeah,
muscle.
yeah.
I'm
We
holding
wish.
on to some.
I mean,
Yeah,
even
right,
if it was half, 15 pounds, like
right.
Oh,
let's
Well,
give,
that's
or
still
even a
huge.
third,
Yeah.
10 is
yeah,
like,
that's what I'm thinking. I mean, I still have a pretty, me and Jake both agree that I still have a pretty favorable body composition for where I'm at and how much I put on. So yeah, I would say I'm curious, definitely curious to see, this next time around going through a prep, what the difference really is. But
even like you guys mentioned, I stayed pretty lean in my off season, even just seeing like when I started with Jake till now, like the size difference, because I didn't really put on a ton of fat. My weight didn't really fluctuate that much. I think I only went up like 14 pounds in a couple months, which it really isn't that bad, because I think I was stage weight 180 at the show, and then I got up to 194 was my absolute heaviest. And I'd say at least five of that is muscle. So it's not too bad. And I mean, we didn't push calories super duper hard because it was what, like October to like January was my only off season because like you have a decent amount of size. The issue you had from last year is you need to get lean enough. Of course, I didn't get lean enough on my own, and I was in classic where you don't have to get as lean as bodybuilding. But he's like, I don't want to push calories too much because you already have the muscle, and that's just take us that much longer to take off for your prep. So, yeah.
So that's kind of like your big focus then for this off season is not so much like putting on muscle, but just like trying to, I don't know, I guess recomposition yourself enough to where you feel like getting leaner is like more feasible, I suppose.
Like close.
Yeah, just like, like just as a goal, like you kind of mentioned about getting leaner than before.
Oh yeah. So the thing, so in the prep now, cutting down, it's you got to realize that, like I think Jackson mentioned, is like eating enough when you're in the off season because you need that excess of calories not only for to maintain your size, not only for strength in the gym, but just to make sure everything's flowing properly. So when you cut, you need to make sure like you don't want to go the opposite way and then you're starving your muscles and you lose all that work that you put in. So he was my check-in, this past night. He's like, "Hey man, you got to make sure that like you're hitting your macros, fats and stuff. Like it's not that big of a deal now at the beginning of prep, but like when you get closer, that stuff really, really matters. Like even a couple grams really does change it."
Yeah, and that's
And we haven't touched
go ahead.
cardio yet. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, with what you said, there's a lot of merit behind that, especially like coming off your off season into a prep. You shouldn't just come straight from your off season, and start your prep. You really should have like that maintenance phase for, I mean, it could be as long as you want to make it, but at least like a month, somewhere like around a maintenance phase, because that gives whatever muscle you put on in that off season a chance to actually mature, and stay around and your body get used to that weight where you're at. And inevitably over that maintenance phase, your body composition should get better at the same weight.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's a good point.
Yeah, because like for my calories, I only went down at the beginning like 100 or so per day. So I'm really technically in like a maintenance phase. Like I'm still eating more calories than I started with Jake before I was growing. So I mean, it really won't get, it's you there. I don't think he's ever made more than 100 calorie change within 1 week. Maybe he did the next week another 100, but usually, I mean, I'm only a couple hundred calories lower than my peak bulking calories. So really, I'm probably maintaining for the next couple months, but like the last like 3 to 4 months, that's where it's really getting gritty. Like he's saying, like 8 weeks out's pretty close to it's game time. Like you obviously lost some weight before that, but it's like okay, now you have to like you know. So it's crazy because like cardio's still 3 times a week, 20 minutes, low intensity, just doing stair step or incline, which obviously is super important to keep doing, I think it's really bad when people just cut out cardio because like, well, I'm bulking. I want to like be as big as I can. It's like, well, I don't know about you, but when I do cardio, that keeps my heart, nice and healthy. When I'm doing like today, like 3 sets of 15, each arm shoulder cable extensions, like my heart rate gets super high. Like, I don't know if that's the way with you on your current split.
Yeah.
My heart gets super high.
And
Yeah,
that
I
kind of
think.
like, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, that makes it easier too. Like when you do your more cardio, when you start leaning out or whatever, if you do cardio when you're bulking or main gaining or whatever you want to call it, it just makes for an easier transition. Same thing with lowering your calories little by little. Like it makes it more gradual, and it's instead of, being so abrupt, I think, your body obviously responds to that a lot better.
Yeah, add 5 minutes here or there versus because what am I gonna do? Stop doing cardio for like 5 months or a year,
Right.
2 years for some people.
Right.
And realistically off seasons are going to be like a year or two. I know we're talking about a couple months for us, but realistically, like after these 3 shows that I plan on doing, I'm easily going to take off 2 to 3 years and just come back like undeniably different.
Yeah,
I'm
this
pretty much just refining my physique from last year. I'm not really adding, obviously I added muscle, but I'm really not changing it. I'm really just coming in leaner than last year. That's really what I'm doing.
yeah, this whole trend that you see with especially like the fitness influencer side of all this. Um,
Mhm.
and now you see a lot of kids, this is how it is too, is coming back to kind of that yo-yo diet that you were talking about, only bulking, going on a bulk for 3 months, maybe 4 months. And it's like there's not enough time there to where, whatever weight you put on in that 3 months, sorry to say it, but it's most likely not gonna be muscle like what you think, first of all. And so it's probably gonna end up being fat.
Right.
An off season or a bulk, ideally, like you said, should be, I mean, 12 months is really like the minimum you would probably like to see to get some actual results out of it, not including, your maintenance phase after your off season that you really should go through as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, that's even what the pros are doing now. Even people using anabolics and stuff like that. I mean, they might do 1 or 2, maybe 3 shows a year, and they're just refining what they already have. I mean, I have, probably 8 to 10 years of exercise experience before doing this show. Now, if you're someone who's never really worked out before, I mean, yeah, you can go ahead and do a competition, but you might want to wait a couple years from when you decide to then really build something and then learn how to cut down and then do
Mhm.
it. So, which is the hard thing to do. So,
Yeah.
I
I
think,
know.
oh, go ahead.
Or you go ahead.
I was just gonna say that, I think a lot of people, including myself, starting out, when you decide you wanna, do bodybuilding, pursue it and compete, um, you want it, you want to compete now, right? And you have to sit back and realize at some point that, you're most likely, in my eyes, there's no sense in cutting down and prepping for a show if you're going to come in super small. I mean, like, I understand like experience, get you experience and stage time and all this other stuff, but there's no sense in wasting your time that you could be growing for cutting down for a show if, you really don't have that much structure to your physique, right? So that's where I've been at, and that's where I'm still at right now is whether, I really should take this next year yet even and just continue to build and then next year bring something that's not deniable when you step on stage. So I think that's a big thing nowadays is people people don't understand like how important it is to actually take the time to grow,
Mm-hmm.
and they just
Especially
want
as
to
a
prep for the
natural.
show and look good. Yeah.
Right.
So, I know we're getting close on time, so I will say, hey Zach, is there any questions you have for Jackson? Or Jackson, is there anything you want to kind of say final last things? Maybe plans, what's coming up, what you want people to know, where we can find you at, all the goods.
So as far as plans coming up, like I said, maybe shooting towards this fall, October-ish. I only had one show in mind up until last week, which was a show here in Michigan. But now I have been blessed with the opportunity, if I choose, to go down to Houston at the beginning of October and compete in summer shredding at Alpha Land, all expenses paid for me. So that's something that we got to think about and definitely keep up on the social media side of things. And there'll be an announcement probably coming pretty soon with what I'm going to do. Um, And you can find me on Instagram at diff, which is DIFF_fit. So
Nice. Diffin, JonTron Fit, First Sleep Fitness. Perfect. Well, what you
sure.
should do is if you're looking for a show, I mean, I'm not going to tell you to do Cleveland necessarily because like half our team is already doing it. But I plan on doing the following week, which is the first week of September, OCB Apex, Virginia. That would be a cool show. I'll be going out to that. So that if you wanted to do that or even wait till later, that'd be cool. I could see you doing that.
When was the Cleveland show? Wasn't it?
Cleveland show is
Like
August
the
27th.
end of end of August.
Okay.
September 3rd is the Apex Virginia, Norfolk, I think it is, OCB, and then the Yorton is the week after that.
Okay. Yeah, I
Our
think
show.
I think that Cleveland show would probably be the best bet if I was going to compete back here, because let me look at the text message real quick. But I think because there's 2 summer shredding events. And the October one that I was going to do, I think is doesn't say. I want to say it's like October 4th or something like that at the beginning of October. So that would kind of be ideal if I did that, and then that would give me, I would only have a couple more weeks before coming back and competing at that show. So I wouldn't have to drag prep out too much longer.
Would that be your first show?
Summer shredding would be my first show if I did it, which is massive to
That'd be
do as your
huge.
first show. It would be, I mean, because
Yeah.
summer shredding attracts tens of thousands from all over the world. So
I think
that would definitely be
that was John. Do you remember my one buddy that I talked about that he did his first show down in Houston?
Um,
Do you remember that? It was
Summer
like I used to work with him at the gym.
Yeah, it sounds super familiar.
Yeah, I was trying to think of the name of the show. I think that's what it was. I think it was the summer shredding one. I mean,
Yeah,
this would have been like, I don't know, like 2019, or it was a while back. But I think that was the one though, because I think he was talking about how huge it was, and that was like one of the massive polls. But yeah, I don't know. That is
Yeah,
really
maybe.
huge though.
yeah, that would be
Oh, yeah.
definitely be
I
a
don't
big
remember.
first show, but
For
Yeah,
sure.
that'd be awesome. I love the fall time for shows because it's like, you have your prep is when it's all like, summer, you're looking all good right beforehand. You got your show in the fall, and you get the off season, you can eat what you want during the holidays. It's just like perfect cycle. Same thing with like,
It is.
what is it? Olympia's like always in October or something. It's like perfect timing. I love it. But okay. Well, looks like we're about time here. Obviously it was awesome to have Jackson on. Great to learn about his off season, his plans, what he's doing. I'm sure we'll see him again very soon. Thank you all for listening. If you want to follow us, we finally have an Instagram page now, just Fitstyle Podcast. If you want to subscribe, obviously on YouTube, you can follow us, me at JonTron Fit, Zach over here at First Sleep Fitness, and then of course, Jackson here at Diff Fit. All right. So thank you guys for listening, and tune in next week.
All right. Take it easy.
All right.
you guys.
Bye.